Hi and welcome to Matt's Music, and in today's episode, come here, shh, I don't, it's very important you don't tell anybody about this video, don't share it, don't like, comment, subscribe, because the word will get out and then CDs will become expensive like vinyl records. But seriously, today's episode is about whether or not there is going to be a CD revival, a CD resurgence like the one that we've seen with vinyl. My personal opinion is yes, there is, and it's sort of inevitable, I think. So I'm going to go through some of the reasons that I think that the CD revival is coming, might even already have started in some small way. So first of all, it's cheap, right? CDs are so cheap now. People are literally giving them away. Anybody that saw the video I put up yesterday about the charity haul that I came back with, I think it was about 32 CDs in total. I paid £13.78 for them, and it was great stuff. I mean, you know, there was like Bob Dylan was in there, there was some Queen in there, Hootie and the Blowfish, I mean, all sorts of stuff. I can't remember what it was now. You'll have to go back and have a look. But there were like 32 different things. Brian Ferry, so many great albums, and they averaged at less than £1 an album. Whereas, you know, so if you're trying to get into collecting physical music, and you think, you know what, yeah, I do want to own my own music. I do want the pride of ownership of owning an album for myself. CD is a great way to go if you want to build up a decent sized collection without spending a fortune on it. You know, I mean, I've got probably about 1,000 CDs. It's not a massive collection. Certainly there are people with plenty more. But if I was to have all of these on vinyl at current prices, you know, 30 quid now for an album in a lot of cases, that's 30,000 quid. Yeah, that's a really fancy car, or a deposit on a house, or I don't know. I mean, there's all sorts of things you could do with 30 grand. Probably before you would spend it on a music collection, unless you're absolutely mega wealthy, or have lost even more sense of reason than most of us that dedicate huge chunks of our homes to collecting physical media instead of just having it on a on a Spotify or a streaming service of some sort. But look, the reality is that we want to collect this stuff. We want the physical ownership. We like to go and thumb through the booklet and look at what's inside the artwork and own it and know that the streaming service is going to take it away from us because they've had some legal argument about who owns the bloody copyright to it. When you bought it, it's yours and you own it. And the thing is that with vinyl, you know, for a lot of people, the ship has sailed in order to build a collection of any meaningful size, simply because of the cost. You know, in today's economic crisis, you might be able to afford an album a week if you're lucky, maybe two. But, you know, at 30 quid a pop, even that, for a lot of people, it's going to be a massive stretch when things are already tight and there's other things to pay for, like feeding their families and putting roofs over their head and all that other boring stuff that you have to do instead of collecting music. So, you know, this for 30 quid or this for in a charity shop, if you're lucky, maybe £1 or 50p. I mean, come on, you know, it allows you to indulge in the hobby for much less money. So I think that's one of the things that people will cotton onto and go, yeah, do you know what? I want to collect physical music. I'm going to buy a CD because it's cheap. I can get tons of it for almost nothing and indulge myself and come back with shopping bags full of music that I can enjoy and listen and add to my collection. Number two, it's great sounding. Look, we all know that vinyl sounds terrific, and I know there will be people in the comments now going, well, actually, vinyl sounds a lot better than CD, so it's worth the money. So you can take your digital music files and stick them up. Yeah, look, I'm not here to get into the debate. As you've seen, I've got vinyl and I've got CD. I've even got cassettes. I love the Humble cassettes. They don't sound very good at all, but there's something very tactile and nice about them, and there's an element of nostalgia to collecting them. But CDs sound great, there's no doubt about that. Whether or not you think they sound better than vinyl or vinyl sounds better than CD, my opinion is they're both a fantastic sounding formats, provided that they're recorded and mastered correctly and all that stuff. If they are, both will sound really, really good, especially if you've got a half decent system to play them on. So it's great sounding music at a fraction of the cost. So again, you know, if you're thinking about whether or not the the CD revival is on its way, it's like, well, you know, people like to go back to having physical collections. Why would they not want something that's really cheap and sounds terrific? So that would be a another reason as well. The portability of CDs compared to vinyl as well. I mean, you know, Christ, again, you know, going back to cassettes, you know, we had in 1979, Sony launched the Walkman. I believe it was sometime in the 80s they came out with the Discman. I think it was them that developed the first portable CD player. I might have misimagined that, but at any rate, you know, you can quite easily put some of these in a bag and take them with you and play them on a portable CD player. This is a new one. I bought this from Amazon, and it's Bluetooth. You can have wireless headphones and listen to your actual CD music, which is terrific. You know, this will fit in a little bag. You can sling it like a messenger bag, sling it on your shoulder, strap a few albums in it, and take it with you in the same way you could with your cassettes. You can't do that with your vinyl, and so if you're a music fan first and foremost, but you happen to have your collection on vinyl, when you want to listen to that stuff on the go, if you're in the car, if you know, commuting to work, if you go for a hike in the mountains, you're at the gym, whatever it is, you're still going to be streaming, right? Because you can't wheel a record player onto the tube or, you know, into the gym and listen to your album. So then you're stuck back with streaming again. And one of the things I think that we all agree is that we want, in this community anyway of physical music collectors, we want the ownership. We want to take control of that so that nobody can take it away from us for contractual reasons. It gets taken off a streaming service or whatever, the internet goes down or whatever. We want the physical format. So CDs are a terrific way of, you know, for, you know, pennies, being able to take your actual real music collection with you, listen to it everywhere you go. Next thing is that there are a lot of releases that are only available on CD. I mean, this actually is a case in point. So this is an album of local bands from the late 90s, a period where I was sort of growing up in Cambridge. These were all the bands that would play on the scene at the time. This came out then and had a lot of my favourite bands and bands I used to see, bands I used to go and drink with in the pub afterwards and all that sort of stuff from that era. And it's only available on CD. It didn't come out on cassette, and it didn't come out on vinyl as far as I'm aware. Some of these series did, but I'm pretty sure this one didn't. And there are, I'm sure you've all got your favourite like local bands where you go afterwards and you buy a CD from them and go and play it afterwards after the gig. And that might be the only format that release was available on. And actually, even it's not just local bands, but a lot of really major artists, their labels weren't releasing things. Excuse me. weren't releasing things on vinyl for many years because they were trying to kill the format and say that CD is the way forward. They were shutting down all the vinyl pressing plants, forcing everybody into CD, and so these things weren't released at the time on vinyl. Some of them now, because of the vinyl resurgence, are being re-released on vinyl, but you have to wait for it to be re-released, and then you have to, you know, wait for it not to be 60 quid to go and buy it. So whereas the CD you can just go and readily acquire it in most cases. Next thing is, I've already mentioned how cheap they are, but one of the indicators I think that the CD revival is going to happen and might be starting already is that actually for a lot of releases you will see that the prices are starting to go up a little bit. You'll see that on Discogs, for quite a lot of albums, the price has started to creep up over the last sort of 12 months to 18 months. And I think that is partly because even though there are billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of CDs that were produced over the last 40 years, the reality is that as so many people have been pulling these things out of lofts and off shelves and just throwing them away in a lot of cases, you will find that, you know, of all the original releases, a bunch of them are now landfill content. A certain amount of them will obviously be broken, scratched, and whatever else, lost, all that sort of stuff. So the numbers then obviously start to dwindle. And then when you start to get to a point where there's an equilibrium between the number of copies that are left in circulation and the number of people that want them, as soon as that gets out of balance, where you then start to get more collectors wanting them than there are readily findable in the marketplace, then the prices start to creep up, and we've started to see that already, which indicates to me that certainly for some releases, you know, the market has started to change that way. So we're seeing a decreasing number of CDs out there in the world and an increasing number of people collecting them. So that I think is a pretty good indicator. And finally, I would say the last indicator would probably be the age of the people that are going to look to collect them and the actual CDs themselves. So CDs released in 1983. So you know, if you were a teenager in 1983, you'd be sort of 50, 60 now. In my case, I'm 44 now. I got into the format in the mid-90s, you know, when I was a teenager and got my first job and was able to buy my first CD player. So you're looking at people that are sort of 40 to 60 years old. And that's traditionally the age bracket of people that get into sort of nostalgic collecting and push the prices up. You see this in the classic car market all the time where, you know, cars from the 50s were the first ones to sort of, you know, get mega expensive. When those people that remembered seeing them as a teenager and had pictures of them on their bedroom wall, like the Gullwing Mercedes and stuff, they started to shoot up in price at the point when people in their 40s to 60s who'd earned a few quid were able to buy one of the things that they always wanted when they were a kid. Or they were, perhaps it was a car, perhaps even not a really fancy car like that, but perhaps they had nostalgia for a car that their parents drive or that they always liked, and so they pushed the prices up. And then the cars from the 60s started to get more expensive, and then the cars from the 70s, then the cars in the 80s, and now we're seeing cars in the 90s start to go up in value. And so we're seeing a similar thing with CDs, I think, we will, because, you know, first of all, vinyl went up in price because people were nostalgic for the format they had when they were kids. Then we saw a resurgence in cassettes, not quite to the same level because, you know, the sound quality wasn't really there. They're a bit more fiddly, but nevertheless, there's a market for them, and they went up next. So inevitably, the last one to go up will be CD because that was the last format to get that mass adoption in the market, and people now are starting to get nostalgic for them. So whether or not you were an early adopter and bought a CD player in 1983, you know, have loved the format ever since, or perhaps even, you know, you are, you know, younger, but, you know, you grew up perhaps in the early part of the 2000s when the CD player was still the main part of the home. You didn't get on board perhaps straight away, or your parents' collection that you grew up with was still on CD and not on Napster or LimeWire or whatever. You'd have grown up with a lot of CDs. So there's this huge tranche of people in the market who potentially have nostalgia and affection for the format. They may well have kept their collections, or they may, like I did, got rid of my collection when I thought the cool thing to do was rip everything onto a hard drive and give all the bloody CDs away, and then regret it, spend a lot of time and money and effort trying to buy all that stuff back again, and you know, adding to it as well. So I think, you know, that in my opinion is as much of a perfect storm as you're ever going to get for something to then become collectible and to shoot up in value. So I think we are probably going to see something similar happen with CDs, a CD revival. You know, something similar to what we've seen with the vinyl one. And part of me thinks it's a good thing because, you know, these things will stop being thrown away in great numbers, because I think that's always a tragedy. Part of me is slightly not looking forward to the day when you have to spend 20, 30, 40, 50 quid on a used CD compared to going to a charity shop and finding great stuff every time you go out, finding 10, 20 albums for like £1 or 50p each. So that's it, that's my thoughts. Let me know in the comments below, do you think that the CD revival is here? Do you think it is inevitable? Or do you think actually it's stupid and you know, it'll never be more than us kind of few crazy idiots, but we're at maximum crazy idiot with the format and nobody else is going to get involved really. It's kind of like, it's just a few old sort of dumb Gen Zers and boomers that are still interested in this old daft stuff. Let me know below, and as always, I'll see you again soon. Cheers.